Well, you will remember that last year, Linda de Sousa Abreu appeared in court. She pleaded guilty to the offence of misconduct in public office.
June 27, 2024, Linda de Sousa Abreu made a mistake she could never take back. One reckless decision not only destroyed her career, but also put her co-workers in danger, setting off a scandal that would change her life for the worse. Here are dirty cops who forgot there were cameras in prison.
Murder charges being filed against the New York prison guards accused of attacking a man who was restrained in a hospital bed. Robert Brooks died just hours after this video was recorded inside the Marcy Correction Center in Utica.
December 9, 2024, Marcy Correctional Facility. Nicholas Anzalone, a correctional officer with a documented history of violence against inmates, helped carry Robert Brooks, already bloodied and handcuffed, into the prison infirmary. It was supposed to be a medical check. What followed was anything but care. Anzalone wasn't new to controversy. He was named in a federal lawsuit for the 2020 beating of Adam Bauer, a nonviolent drug offender, at Marcy. That case, like so many others, had quietly moved through the system. Now Anzalone was at the center of something no one could ignore. The scene inside the examination room quickly turned horrific. Officers forced a white object into Brooks's mouth. Another held his throat. Then the beating began. Strikes to the face, torso, groin, and buttocks. Anzalone and his colleagues didn't care who watched. Several officers stood by passively. 2 nurses lingered in the hallway, silent witnesses. When Brooks went limp, Anzalone and another officer tried to throw his unresponsive body through a nearby window. Failing that, they dumped him back on the examination table. One officer performed a sternal rub, a desperate perfunctory medical gesture with little chance of reviving him. The aftermath was immediate and decisive. Governor Hochul ordered the firing of 13 officers and a nurse, including Anzalone. The Noise Coppa union called the events a disgrace to their profession. Even other prison staff couldn't defend what had happened. Anzalone's role became clear as the investigation unfolded. He wasn't just present, he was an active participant. The evidence mounted: body camera footage, eyewitness accounts, and a pattern of abuse that stretched back years. The New York State Attorney General's office stepped in, releasing body camera footage that showed Anzalone's involvement. The video, though lacking audio, was damning. It captured the brutality, the indifference, and the fatal consequences. Facing overwhelming evidence, Anzalone took a plea deal. He pled guilty to first-degree manslaughter. In exchange for his admission, he received a 22-year prison sentence, far less than the 25 years to life he faced for murder. The Brooks family responded with measured relief.
It is important to us to see my father's killers publicly admit what they have done and face severe consequences,
Robert Brooks Jr. said. Jared Ricks, Brooks's brother, added,
"These pleas help us know that some measure of justice is served."
Anzalone's guilty plea was more than personal accountability. It was a statement about a system that had protected him for years. His downfall wasn't just about one beating. It was about a pattern finally exposed. The case set a new standard. No longer could officers like Anzalone act with impunity, believing that infirmary walls would shield their violence from scrutiny. The body cameras that captured his crime became a turning point for prison accountability in New York. But Anzalone's conviction was just the beginning. The investigation revealed a broader pattern of abuse at Marcy Correctional Facility. Other officers faced charges and systemic reforms followed. The message was clear: the era of hidden violence was over. The Brooks family's federal lawsuit against the state called Marcy a dangerously broken system that brutalized inmates. Anzalone's conviction proved their claim. His 22-year sentence was both punishment and warning, an end to his career of violence, and a signal that the system was finally fighting back. Nicholas Anzalone's story wasn't unique in New York's prison system, but his conviction marked a turning point. It showed that even the most entrenched patterns of brutality could be broken. The walls that once protected officers like him were coming down, one case at a time. And while justice for Robert Brooks could never be complete, Anzalone's fall was a start. It was a message to every officer who believed the infirmary was a safe place to abuse power. That era had ended. The cameras were rolling now, and no one was above the law.
A former Warren police officer will learn how long he will spend behind bars today after he was charged for this, assaulting an inmate at the jail.
June 13th, 2023, a regular booking process at the Warren Police Department turned into a federal case that would shock Michigan's law enforcement community. Former officer Matthew Rodriguez, a 14-year department veteran, was about to see his career and freedom come to an abrupt end. It began with a routine arrest. The 19-year-old detainee stood quietly in the fingerprint room, hands in his pockets, not resisting or threatening anyone. But Rodriguez saw something different. Without warning, he struck the young man in the head, slammed him against the wall, and threw him to the floor. While the victim lay defenseless, Rodriguez unleashed a brutal attack, punching the young man repeatedly and slamming his head onto the hard floor. Security cameras captured every second of the beating. The evidence was clear, unprovoked, excessive force against a prisoner who posed no threat. But Rodriguez didn't stop there. He doubled down, filing a false report to cover up his actions, hoping departmental paperwork would bury the truth. Instead, the video spread like wildfire, nearly 3 million views and counting. The Warren Police Department responded quickly, firing Rodriguez just 13 days after the assault. Police Commissioner William Dwyer didn't mince words.
Like everybody, I was shocked and appalled when I observed Rodriguez's actions. These actions were completely unjustified and unprofessional.
Given the totality of this incident, the decision to terminate Rodriguez's employment was clear and obvious. The story didn't end with his termination. Federal prosecutors charged Rodriguez with depriving the prisoner of his constitutional rights under color of law, a charge carrying up to 10 years in prison. They also hit him with falsification of records, which could have added 20 more years. What really surprised investigators wasn't just this single incident. A pattern of abuse emerged from Rodriguez's past. There was the 2012 assault of another inmate. Then, in 2017, excessive force was used against a high school student while serving as a school resource officer. Despite these red flags, he remained on the force until that fateful June day in 2023. Rodriguez eventually pleaded guilty, admitting he used unreasonable force and lied about it. Even his own attorney, Steve Fishman, didn't sugarcoat the situation.
I can tell you this, he's not going to be a police officer, and he probably never should have been a police officer, quite frankly.
The judge considered Rodriguez's post-incident behavior. He started a trucking business and stayed out of trouble. But that didn't erase his past. The 1 year and 1 day sentence was less than the 18 to 24 months guidelines, partly because Rodriguez voluntarily left law enforcement for good. But was justice truly served? The victim, now facing his own robbery charges, never got closure. Rodriguez received 3 years of probation after his prison term. And while he's no longer a cop, the shadow of his badge hangs over every officer who works to build community trust. As Rodriguez prepares to turn himself in, his case serves as a stark warning. Cameras are everywhere, especially in police stations. And sometimes those cameras reveal the truth about who should and shouldn't wear the badge. If you thought Rodriguez's story was disturbing, wait until you see what happens when surveillance footage exposes even darker secrets in our next case.
On 25th of June 2024, you engaged in activity with a prisoner. That compromised your role as a prison officer.
June 27th, 2024. Inside the notoriously tough HMP Wandsworth, a cell door closes behind prison officer Linda de Sousa Abreu. Moments later, a forbidden act is caught on camera, an act that would not only destroy her career, but also rock the entire British prison system. De Sousa Abreu was just 30 years old, working at the infamous all-male facility in southwest London. Like many officers, she was trusted to maintain order in one of the country's most challenging environments. But her actions that day would break that trust in the most public way possible. Rather than maintaining professional boundaries, Sousa Abreu engaged in a relationship with a male inmate. But this wasn't just a private affair. Another prisoner, using an illegal mobile phone, filmed the entire encounter. The footage showed Sousa Abreu participating with what prosecutors later described as evident enthusiasm. The other inmate provided commentary throughout, calling it historic and saying, "This is how we live at Wandsworth, bruv." The video quickly went viral on social media, exposing not only Sousa Abreu's misconduct, but also the astonishing ease with which prisoners could obtain contraband phones and drugs. The recording showed another inmate smoking what appeared to be cannabis during the incident. Once senior staff identified her in the video, Sousa Abreu attempted a hasty escape. She called the prison while fleeing to Heathrow Airport, claiming she wouldn't return to work and that her husband would return her equipment. Authorities caught her just before she could board a flight to Madrid with her father. The investigation uncovered even more damning evidence. A separate recording of Sousa Abreu performing a sex act with the same inmate was found on her prison-issued body-worn camera. She admitted to having sex with the prisoner on at least one other occasion. On July 29, 2024, she pleaded guilty to misconduct in a public office. Prosecutors made it clear this was a deliberate and repeated abuse of trust. At her Isleworth Crown Court sentencing, Judge Martin Edmonds laid out the gravity of her actions. He noted that she had removed her prison radio and left her keys vulnerable during the incident, compromising security for personal gratification. The impact on Wandsworth's female staff was immediate and devastating. Prison Governor Andrew Davie described how Sousa Abreu's actions undid years of progress for women working in men's prisons. Suddenly, female officers faced increased harassment from inmates who now considered them fair game. Prison authorities moved swiftly. Sousa Abreu was sentenced to 15 months in prison. The two inmates involved in the recording faced their own investigations. The prison service emphasized that while most officers are honest, they're catching more of the small minority who break the rules, thanks to strengthened vetting and corruption detection. But the damage was done. Sousa Abreu's case exposed not just individual corruption, but systemic problems with contraband phones, drugs, and staff-inmate relationships. It became a cautionary tale for every prison officer and a stark reminder of the thin line between authority and temptation in such a volatile environment. Her 15-month sentence sent a clear message: abuse of public trust, especially in positions of authority over vulnerable populations, will not be tolerated. The scandal forced a hard look at security protocols and staff-inmate boundaries across the entire prison system. But if you think this was the worst case of prison officer misconduct, wait until you hear what happened in our next shocking story.
Also new at 6, a former corrections officer sentenced to a year in prison after having sex with an inmate.
June 2023, Midway, Florida. Kerontrez Kennon was supposed to be a guardian behind bars, a correctional officer keeping order. Instead, he shattered trust by crossing every line, engaging in a secret sexual relationship with an inmate under his watch. This wasn't just a reckless mistake, it was a calculated abuse of power that exposed deep flaws in prison oversight. Kennon was just 22 and fresh on the job at FCI Tallahassee when he began breaking the rules. He didn't stop at the relationship, but against all regulations, he smuggled cigarettes and food to the inmate. Worse yet, he helped her set up a Cash App account, allowing other prisoners to pay for contraband cigarettes. What started as hidden favors spiraled into full-blown corruption, all while Kennon was supposed to uphold the law. The scandal exploded when the inmate reported the abuse. By then, Kennon had already left his post, but the damage was done. A joint FBI and Department of Justice investigation uncovered the extent of his misconduct. The evidence revealed a man who exploited his position of authority to manipulate and exploit a vulnerable inmate. A betrayal that sparked outrage far beyond the prison walls. Kennon faced federal charges for his actions. Prosecutors made it clear this kind of betrayal would not be tolerated. Sentenced to 1 year in prison followed by 5 years of supervised release, Kennon's punishment sent a message about the consequences of abusing trust in corrections. What's haunting about this case is how easily boundaries were blurred in a place designed to keep control and order. When those sworn to protect turn predator, inmates lose their last line of defense. The FBI and Inspector General's offices emphasize their commitment to rooting out these abuses, because no one behind bars should suffer exploitation at the hands of a guard. Kennon's downfall is a stark reminder that corruption can fester where oversight is weakest and where cameras sometimes fail to capture the truth. But if you think this was the darkest betrayal inside prison walls, wait until you hear about the next officer who took abuse of power to a terrifying new extreme. March 8, 2018. Staten Correctional Facility in Elmore, Alabama. Sergeant Devlon Williams stands at the intersection of authority and brutality, about to cross the line that would end his career and cost him years of freedom. The victim, only identified as DH, had just attempted a suicide. Protocol demanded immediate medical attention. Instead, Williams delivered a savage beating that would leave lasting scars on more than one life. Williams' actions began with a command. When DH didn't instantly comply, Williams struck him with his collapsible baton. This wasn't just correctional discipline, it was personal and calculated. Williams dragged DH through the prison, shoving his head into a gate and slamming him against a door before finally reaching the healthcare unit. In the hallway, away from witnesses, Williams threw DH to the ground and began his assault. He punched and kicked the inmate, who lay curled in a fetal position, unresisting. Williams' words echoed down the corridor.
"Since you want to die, I'm going to help you."
The violence escalated. Williams struck DH 8 to 10 more times with his baton. Another officer, Larry Manigan Jr., joined the attack. They forced DH to crawl to the emergency room. As he struggled forward, Manigan stepped on his chest. The aftermath was gruesome. DH suffered 3 broken ribs, numerous bruises and abrasions, all because he was vulnerable, not violent. Williams didn't just try to cover up his crime. He orchestrated a conspiracy. He filed false reports, lied to investigators, and pressured junior officers and nurses to back his fabricated version of events. When a nurse threatened to report the abuse, Williams told her, "You didn't see anything." But the truth had witnesses. Nurses who saw the attack refused to stay silent. Manigan eventually pleaded guilty and testified against Williams during his trial. Williams' defense team tried to claim the incident wasn't a real suicide aerial attempt, calling it a catch-out, suggesting DH was faking to escape drug debts. They even argued the nurses were mistaken about what they saw, claiming Manigan was the primary aggressor. The jury didn't buy it. On February 28, 2024, Williams was sentenced to 5 years and 3 months in federal prison. He lost his freedom, his career, and any lingering claim to authority. Assistant Attorney General Kristen Clark spoke plainly. This defendant was supposed to set an example for those he supervised, and instead he callously abused his authority and brutalized a vulnerable inmate during a time of need. She added, "The Justice Department will not tolerate this type of violent conduct inside our jails and prisons, and we will continue to prosecute corrections officials who violate the constitutional and civil rights of people in their custody." Williams' case isn't just about one violent act. It's part of a larger pattern the Justice Department is investigating in Alabama's prisons. The state faces a civil lawsuit for unconstitutional levels of violence and a pattern of excessive force by officers. While most correctional officers serve honorably, Williams' story is a stark reminder of what happens when power corrupts absolutely. He thought he could break the rules, then break the truth. Instead, the system broke him.
The Lorain County Jail, the Sheriff's Office says CEO Ruben Ortiz was trying to handcuff an inmate for transport when the inmate yelled. That triggered a fight.
August 25th, 2023, Lorain County Jail. Veteran corrections officer Ruben Ortiz began what he thought would be another routine inmate transport. But when security cameras captured what happened next, his entire career came crashing down. It all started in 2001 when Ruben Ortiz joined the Lorain County Sheriff's Office. Right from the start, he had red flags in his application. He admitted to being fired from his previous job for falsifying documents, but the department hired him anyway. That decision would come back to haunt them. Ortiz's early performance reviews already hinted at trouble. Supervisors noted he used bad judgment when dealing with inmates and took their remarks personally. The warning signs were there, but they were ignored. Over the years, his behavior only got worse. In 2005, Ortiz placed an inmate in a restraint bed without supervisor approval. Just months later, he got into a needless physical confrontation with another inmate, Damian Bell. He threw his radio to the floor during the struggle. Supervisors found he had mistreated Bell and suspended him for 3 days. The pattern continued. In 2010, Ortiz broke up a fight between inmates and put his knee on one's head, causing minor injuries. He left that detail out of his use of force report. He received a written reprimand. 2013 brought more trouble. Ortiz pushed inmate Michael Cadman against a wall, struck him in the head, and kneed him in the back. Investigators found that Ortiz lied in his report about what happened. Once again, he was suspended for 3 days. But even with this growing record, Ortiz remained on the job. In 2018, inmate Stephen Conley filed a federal lawsuit claiming Ortiz and another officer beat him while handcuffed. The video showed officers escorting Conley to a room. Once inside, Conley's legs were swiped, knocking him down. He claimed both officers kicked and punched him, causing serious injuries. But internal reports said only minimal force was used, and both officers were cleared. Then came August 25th, 2023. Security cameras captured Ortiz preparing 32-year-old Charles C.J. Koch for transport to a mental health facility. Koch was calm, showing no aggression. Suddenly, Ortiz began punching Koch repeatedly, over a dozen times. Even when other officers rushed in, Ortiz didn't stop. After the attack, Ortiz claimed he was the injured party and needed medical attention. He said Koch tried to strike and bite him, but the video told a very different story. This time, Ortiz couldn't lie his way out. The department fired him on November 27, 2023. He was charged with assault and falsifying reports, both first-degree misdemeanors. Ortiz pled no contest and was found guilty. He received a $500 fine and a 30-day jail sentence. But the damage was done. The department's failure to act earlier allowed his behavior to escalate. Now, Koch's attorneys are planning a federal lawsuit against the sheriff's department, the jail, and every officer involved. Attorney Jason Harless said,
"I believe it establishes a clear pattern of conduct, not just with this officer, but perhaps beyond that, and the disciplinary sanctions that go into an incident like this."
The Lorain County Sheriff's Office issued a statement.
If an employee is accused or may have been involved in an incident which violates our policies, we investigate to determine whether our policies or the laws and regulations of Ohio have been violated. Those investigations are conducted with the same care that all investigations are looked at and completed by the Lorain County Sheriff's Office.
But for many, those words ring hollow. Ortiz's case shows what happens when warnings are ignored and bad behavior is allowed to continue. His story isn't just about one corrupt officer, it's about a system that failed to stop him until it was too late.